Hi, welcome to Anything Goes. This is Amanda. I'm bringing you today 3 Dollar Tree DIYs, and our theme is poinsettias. This is a part of the Bloom with Grace Challenge hosted by Monners Market and Momma Mia DIY. So let's just get started right into DIY number 1. I was so excited to get to use my 2022 calendars finally because the December back picture has poinsettias on it. So I cut those out, and now I'm taking a piece of the wood that you get in like a couple of packs from Walmart, and I cut them into 2 pieces, and I traced it onto the back of some scrapbook paper, used a glue stick, glued that down. I don't know who discovered the method of using a sanding sponge to get the cleanest edge for scrapbook paper on wood, but it is the best thing ever. So now I'm going to take this Dollar Tree crate and I'm going to apply some Waverly wax, and I wanted to test out something because a lot of times we paint it on and then we wipe it off, and I feel like we waste a lot of the wax doing it that way. So I decided to just use the baby wipe directly. Okay, so next I glued the little calendar pieces onto the pieces of wood and Mod Podged them on as well. I found a toy car that I wrestled with to get the wheels off of, and we had quite the fight. And I glued the wheels on all 4 sides, and then when I went to put my squares on the sides, I forgot to incorporate the fact that the wheels would be there. So I did have to cut them down, which was no problem. And then they fit. And after that, I got some Velcro out because I wanted to be able to make the little squares with all the seasons of the calendar squares, and Velcroed that onto the wagon. I used the end of a garden stake that you can get from Dollar Tree to get that black piece of metal to use as the wagon handles or stick that you pull it with. And then I don't know where I got this plastic chain from, but it's from something from Dollar Tree. I just pulled one of the links off and glued it in between the metal pole, and that became the handle. And I like to just stuff things with Walmart bags or grocery store bags, and especially if it's stuff that is not necessarily stationary. And I just filled up my wagon with some poinsettias, so it has poinsettias on both sides plus poinsettias inside the wagon. And here is the final look of my wagon. So just a little bit about what Bloom with Grace is. Every month a flower is picked and we're asked to DIY with that flower. I will provide the playlist in my description box. I wanted to share with you the difference between having one Dollar Tree poinsettia and combining two together. And I learned that from Evie at My Sweet Little Home, and I'll include her link in my box as well. So I got these two letters, J and Y, and I just peeled off the fabric that was on them and had another battle with the back of them, removing whatever kind of glue they happened to use, because it was some strong glue. But I did eventually win and get everything off the back. Unfortunately, with the letter J, you can't flip it over and just work on the back, whereas you can with the Y. But I felt, to be fair, I would go ahead and use the front of the Y as well. So I traced out the letters on some buffalo check scrapbook paper, and I always I trace it directly, but I always overcut just to make sure that I do cover it, because cutting, I can sometimes cut too close, and I always know that I can use the sanding trick to sand off the excess paper. So once I cut the letters out, I realized I didn't turn my J around properly, so I had to redo the J. I used the glue stick for the J and the Y. And this round circle, I'm just taking the Dollar Tree fabric marker to give it just some color, and the double poinsettia, the Dollar Tree double poinsettia, I'm gluing Velcro onto the back, and I'm going to Velcro that onto the circle, because I feel like the word joy can be used year-round, and I can switch out different things with that as well. So then I glued some Jenga blocks to the back, and that is the final outcome of that project. And DIY number 3, I'm going to make some poinsettias out of some wide ribbon. So you cut 6 pieces of the same size ribbon, and after you have all 6 of your pieces, then you're going to take 2 by 2, only because my scissors were only sharp enough to handle cutting the wire 2 by 2, and you're going to be cutting them into the ends into the shape of a poinsettia petal, which you'll see me do here. And you do that to all 6 of your pieces of ribbon. And you can do 2 by 2, and if you have stronger scissors, you can do all 6 at one time. And once you have all of your pieces, then what you're going to do is kind of like the accordion fold to each of them, which I might not be explaining it but good with words, but when you see me do what I do with it, I think it'll make sense. You accordion fold all 6 pieces, and just you start squeezing them together one by one and holding them together on top of each other, not like you're making a bow, but on top of each other. And then I took a chenille stem and wrapped it around the center part. Not super tight at first because I wanted to make sure I got the center. And then once I made sure it was centered to my liking, then I tightened it as tight as possible. So there's the chenille stem. And I have not tried this with ribbon that doesn't have wire on the edges, so I don't know how that would work. But I do know that the wire comes in handy because when you go to spread out your petals, then they stay in that shape that you put them in. So then you just spread out the petals, and now you can start seeing the shape of a poinsettia. And for the center part, I took just 3 of these Dollar Tree gold beads and glued them to the center to hide the pipe cleaner. I always want to call it a pipe cleaner, but I hear everybody else on YouTube calling it a chenille stem, so I tried to sound fancy. So I glued the 3 beads to hide the pipe cleaner, and what I originally had planned to do with this was to make a garland with it and connect the pipe cleaners together with the beads in between each of the ribbon flowers, but I didn't like it. So I ended up changing it, which you'll see what I did with it at the end. I took them all apart. I think the beaded garland would still look really cute with some poinsettias. I just think they need to be smaller, and I think that's why I didn't like how it looked, because the petals were hiding a lot of the beads, and I just think that I would need to make smaller poinsettias to do a poinsettia beaded garland. So I took everything apart, and I only made one tassel for the end of this one poinsettia that I beaded. I did use the beads, and I'm gonna put a tassel at the end. I used this real fuzzy thin yarn as the tassel part, and I hooked it onto the end of the pipe cleaner that the beads were strung through, and then I pushed that little piece of pipe cleaner into the bead at the very end, so you couldn't really see that. It looked like there's what I ended up doing with it. I glued everything to a bamboo cutting board, and here's just some more pictures. And I want to tell you a little bit about my fireplace. I took a twin size headboard that I thought looked like a mantle, and I bought an electric logs. Here in Florida, fireplaces are hard to come by, but I have been wanting one so bad. So this was my version of a faux fireplace, and I even got the little set of like fireplace tools that you use to move the logs and stuff. As you can see, I'm using the fireplace to display this on because my tier tower and tier tray are full of the other Christmas DIYs from the previous video. So I want to thank you for sticking around and watching my video. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys. Have a great day.